This Korean drama is about a sister seeking revenge for her brother's murder. Ok Chan-mi is having a conversation with her brother, Ok Chang-gu, also known as Park Won-sok, when suddenly, the latter sees someone enter the room and puts his sister on hold. Suddenly, Won-sok is seen falling down the window while Chan-mi sees the call disconnect and is left confused. Chan-mi then competes in the shooting event that she has come for, and fails to win the gold, as she can't help thinking about her brother, and has to settle for the bronze. She then makes her way to Seoul to know what happened to her brother, and receives the news of his suicide. Shocked, she rushes to the resting place of her brother and breaks down after seeing his ashes kept next to a picture of his. She then rushes to catch up with her brother's adopted parents, who cannot help speak about the humiliation that they are facing due to Won-sok's, Chang-gu's, suicide. Chan-mi then rushes to the police station to find the person in charge of her brother's case, and tells them that Won-sok met someone before the fall. She believes that this is a murder case, but the head investigator blocks her by telling her that anything can be going on in the mind of the one committing suicide, and the room he fell from was access to everyone. They don't pay attention to her after this and shut the case by labeling it a suicide, which angers Chan-mi. She then starts to make her move to Seoul to find the murderer herself. On the other hand, we see Ji Soo-hyun is a simple part-timer supporting himself in the treatment of his mother, who is admitted to a nursing home. One day, while returning from his visit to his mother, he faints in the middle of the road and is helped by passerby to the hospital. The doctors ask him to bring a guardian before revealing anything to him and is discharged. That is when he remembers his bike and finds out that it has been stolen. He starts looking for the bike, while elsewhere, Chan-mi arrives in Seoul and ends up buying Soo-hyun's stolen bike. The two get into an argument until Chan-mi sees an opening and runs away with the bike. Soo-hyun follows her and finds out that the thieves have come to steal the bike again to resell it. He then gets into a fight with the thieves until one of them hits him on the head and gets an opening to escape. Soo-hyun is now dizzy and tries to walk back when Chan-mi saves him from getting into an accident, and the two call it a truce. Chan-mi enrolls in her brother's school for her senior year. She heads out on her bike, but once again meets Soo-hyun when the two almost dash into each other. Soo-hyun then helps her wash up after her fall into a garbage dump and gives her a school blazer to cover up. The two then head to school and she becomes the topic of discussion among girls after showing up in Soo-hyun's blazer. She then gets her brother's girlfriend's phone number from a student and tries to call, but finds out that the number belongs to Soo-hyun. Soo-hyun is shocked by this and asks the doctor how long he has to live, only to find out that he's got about 6 months to a year left to live, and there's no chance of him getting surgery due to the location of the tumor. The following days, Soo-hyun does not come to school, until one day when Chan-mi enters the room where the incident happened and turns to find Soo-hyun standing there. He tells her that he saw Won-sok falling from the window and was the one who called the police. Chan-mi and Soo-hyun are meeting in the room where Won-sok's incident took place. When Chan-mi asks what made him come back to school, Soo-hyun tells her that it was because of lunch, the cat that the latter usually feeds. He takes her to the cat and tells her that he was feeding the cat when he heard a thud and saw Won-sok lying in front of him. He then asks her to feed the cat when he's not around, and the two leave for their break. In the cafeteria, Chan-mi cannot help but notice Soo-hyun while remembering his medical condition, when suddenly a commotion takes away her attention, and she sees a fear-stricken female student standing in front of a male student. She is then informed that the latter had sexually assaulted the girl, Min So-na, but due to the lack of evidence, Sa Young-kyung wasn't given a heavy punishment. However, he was made to transfer schools, which is why it is a surprise that he's back. Later in class, she has a dispute with Young-kyung when another classmate, Sok Jae-bom, also enters to support her. But things only get messy. Right then, Jae-bom's friend Kyo-song enters and stops them from taking things further. Soo-hyun visits the doctor and finds out that he needs to take medication to keep the symptoms under control. He's told that he may experience extreme mood swings like aggression, and is told to keep calm at all times. Back in school, Chan-mi is asked to guide Jae-bom in practicing shooting, and she takes things a little too seriously. Later, Oh-sung tells her that Jae-bom is only taking part in this to try and get his memory back, after losing it to an incident that put him into a coma. Chanmi apologizes to him, and Jae-bom tells her to continue helping him in the future. On the other hand, Soo-hyun hands Hong Ah-young her phone and finds out that Chanmi has been asking her to meet regarding Won-sok. The two, along with Tae-so-yeon, are surprised and contemplate what to do. Later, Soo-hyun sees Chanmi talking to Jae-bom on the sidewalk and remembers the text she had sent to Ah-young. He then talks to her after she reaches home, but doesn't find out much. The next day, Chanmi notices that Soo-hyun is experiencing a headache and remembers his condition. He rushes out to the washroom in the middle of class, and she follows him soon after, and dashes into the men's room where she sees blood flowing out from one of the cubicles. She starts calling out his name, only to see him come out of another cubicle, which makes them think about whose blood that is. They soon find out that it is none other than So-na, who has cut her wrists in the washroom, and the two call for an ambulance. The girl is rushed to the hospital while detectives reach the scene and recognize Chanmi. During a private discussion, the two detectives question them separately, and the female detective soon starts to ask Chanmi about her move from Busan to Seoul. Chanmi tells her what she thinks is right and that she will continue to investigate her brother's death. In the hospital, So-na's parents see their daughter lying in bed, which makes her father rush to the school and question them about what happened, only for everything to be futile. On the other hand, Chanmi gets a reply from Ah-young and rushes to meet her at the location mentioned. Soo-yeon walks out in front of Chanmi while pretending to be Ah-young, to which the latter points out that she's not the person whom she wanted to meet. Soo-yeon then tells her that if she wants to find out about Won-sok, then the person she should go to is Im So-mi. Chanmi then goes out to meet So-mi and is shocked to find out that her brother is a different person in the eyes of others. She is told that her brother was no less of a bully and that many are rejoicing in his death. This shakes Chanmi and she apologizes on behalf of Won-sok before leaving. Soo-yeon asks Soo-hyun for his help in So-na's case and asks him to teach the perpetrator a lesson by force, because this is the only way to find justice. She reminds him of how he had once helped her in the past and asks him to do the same thing again while telling him that he will even be paid for this. Soo-hyun rejects her, but she insists and gives him time till the next day to decide. Soo-hyun is not leaning towards this, but soon gets a call from his mother's nursing home and is told that she is showing signs of pneumonia. This makes him desperate to make some money, and he agrees to So-yeon's request. He sneaks into the dark room where Young Kyung is developing some pictures to blackmail So-na and ties him up to a chair. He then threatens him and makes him agree to drop out of school the next day, to which Young Kyung agrees. While leaving the room, Soo-hyun sees the pictures he has been developing, which were of an assaulted So-na, and he is angered by what he sees. He then picks up a hammer and assaults Young Kyung because of his uncontrolled anger that came from his medical condition. He soon escapes to the road and turns to leave when he sees Chanmi there. Soo-hyun makes up a reason for Chanmi, who sees him while he is escaping after punishing Young Kyung. Chanmi sees the blood on his shoes but doesn't ask much, and the two leave there. But Soo-hyun can't stop thinking about what he did and his encounter with Chanmi. The next day, the two have another encounter as they come to meet their loved ones at their resting place. Soo-hyun tells her about his brother who committed suicide due to severe bullying, and Chanmi tells him that she's Won-sok's twin. Elsewhere, there's a commotion at school because of Young Kyung, who is leaving in a wheelchair as the students shout at him to never come back. Chanmi and Soo-hyun arrive at the same time and are seen by Ji-hyun, who later asks the former if there's something going on between her and Soo-hyun. Chanmi denies this, and the two continue to watch the basketball match between Soo-hyun and Oh-song's class. Oh-song gets frustrated by Ji-hyun's cheers for Soo-hyun and pushes the latter, which makes him bump his head and be taken to the hospital. Ji-hyun starts to bicker with Oh-song, and the two almost get into a fight. Meanwhile, Chanmi remembers that Won-sok has been taking care of Oh-song's business according to Im-soo, and later asks Jae-bom to help her meet him. On the other hand, Ji-hyun helps Soo-hyun while leaving the hospital when they bump into a disguised So-yeon. So-yeon goes to meet So-na's father and collects the reward that he has prepared for Soo-hyun. Elsewhere, Chanmi meets with Oh-song and tries to talk about Won-sok, but is unable to get any information about her brother. Instead, she ends up following him to his house after he leaves his phone behind and sees Ji-hyun at his house. Ji-hyun is shocked and angered and tells Oh-song to fix the situation and make sure that Chan-mi doesn't tell anyone about their living together. The next day, Oh-song tells Chan-mi that Ji-song is his stepsister and asks her to not let anyone know about this, as the two hate each other. Later, the students see Young Kyung coming to school with detectives to find the person who assaulted him. However, the students shout at them to leave, which is ignored by the investigators as they collect CCTV footage from around the area. In the footage, they see a female student stopping in front of the place where the perpetrator was seen jumping the wall and recognized her to be Chan-mi. Chan-mi is suspicious of Soo-hyun and thinks that he may even be the one behind Won-sok's death. She goes to his house and sees the door open, so she enters and looks around, during which she finds the shoes he was wearing that night, which are covered in blood. She sneakily takes them back with her while Soo-hyun notices her presence and finds out what she's done. Later, the investigators question Chan-mi about the night when Young Kyung was assaulted while showing her the footage, but she reveals nothing to them other than the fact that she met Soo-hyun. This takes the investigators to Soo-hyun, who too doesn't say much other than meeting Chan-mi and exercising that night. The next day, Chan-mi returns the shoes to Soo-hyun and apologizes for what she did, while letting him know that she said nothing to the police. Soo-hyun tells her that the person behind Young Kyung's assault is not the one who killed her brother. Later at work, Soo-hyun mixes his gloves and tap in the bowling alley's garbage and throws them out. But when he returns, he finds out that the investigator, So-young's husband, is his doctor. Chan-mi receives a note the next day to go to the auditorium, but is attacked and made to faint while the perpetrator uses her phone for a scheme. Jae-bom finds her there and takes her to the hospital. However, what they don't know is that someone has used Chan-mi to attack Ji-hyun. The next day, an indecent picture of Ji-hyun is circulating through school, and she finds out that the one to begin this is none other than Chan-mi. When she sees Chan-mi enter, she can't help but slap her without giving her a chance to explain anything. She goes for another hit when Soo-hyun intervenes and takes Chan-mi away from there. Soo-hyun takes Chan-mi away from the ruckus and tells her that he'd warned something like this would happen, which is why he asked her to not come back to this school. She tries to find out what happened and asks her friend what the message was that was sent from her phone. Later, she tells Jae-bom what happened and asks him to check the surveillance footage. Later, Ji-hyun asks Soo-hyun why he defended Chan-mi, to which he just says that this might just be a misunderstanding. During lunch, Ji-hyun continues to get looks from the students as she joins Soo-hyun, while Jae-bom tells Chan-mi that he succeeded in getting permission to check the footage. Later, he finds someone entering the auditorium. However, upon recognizing who it was, he lies to Chan-mi and tells her that the perpetrator must have avoided the cameras. Elsewhere, Ji-hyun finds out that the rumor of her living with Oh-song is spreading everywhere, which she is unable to deny, but she blames Chan-mi for it. She tells Oh-song to handle Chan-mi and make sure she leaves the school, so he goes to his father and asks for help, while reporting that Chan-mi is illegally residing at a dorm. On the other hand, Ji-hyun calls Chan-mi to meet at a parking lot where she bullies her through the people she has hired. This is seen by Soo-hyun, who rushes to help, but everything has already been done, and he handles the situation after the girls have left. Whereas, the wounded Chan-mi returns to the dorm, only to see Photoshop pictures of her stuck around the dorm, which she soon starts taking down. Right then, the dorm owner comes to tell her that she has to leave because someone reported her staying there to the police. Soo-hyun arrives at this moment and tells her to stay with him until she finds a new place, to which she agrees as there is no better choice. Elsewhere, Oh-song is looking at the pictures and screenshot of messages between Chan-mi and her brother that he got from her phone after attacking her in the auditorium. The next morning, Chan-mi prepares breakfast for Soo-hyun as a thanks, and the two soon leave for school. Upon arriving to school, she once again finds a note in her locker and thinks that it was Ji-hyun who did it. This time, the note tells her to go to the auditorium during the 5th period. On the other hand, Young Kyung meets Oh-song in a secluded corner and asks him why he hasn't taken any action yet and found the one who assaulted him. Oh-song tells him to stay calm as he is still looking out. During 5th period, Chan-mi makes her way to the auditorium to see a seminar starting for the seniors. When a video is played during the seminar, the display changes and footage of someone recording Won-sok being kicked out of the window is played, which shocks everyone present there. The suicide case is now being turned into a homicide case that is creating waves everywhere, while Chan-mi feels shattered once again. Elsewhere, Jae-bom meets Oh-song and tells him about the footage that he saw in the surveillance room. He asks him to not harm Chan-mi when Oh-song reveals that Chan-mi is Won-sok's twin sister. On the other hand, Ji-hyun brings the bullies to So-yeon, who is dragged into an alleyway and hit badly. The next day, Jae-bom sees a pair of limited edition shoes hanging on a tree which are familiar to those belonging to Oh-song, which helped him recognize him as the perpetrator. Oh-song joins him then, and through his behavior, he can feel that there's something fishy going on. Elsewhere, Chan-mi receives another note to meet at the shooting center. The investigators have begun their work and first make their way to the auditorium where the video was played, after which they call for Chan-mi to ask her some questions. However, they keep waiting while Chan-mi makes her way to the shooting center and hears someone behind her. It is Jae-bom. Jae-bom was not the one who called Chan-mi to meet, and the two suddenly see a student rushing past the door and start to run behind them. However, they soon lose sight of that person and have no choice but to go back. Chan-mi then goes to meet the investigators, who apologize for not believing in her the last time, and ask her in detail about what happened on the call. They then tell her to not look for the perpetrator and let them investigate the case. Elsewhere, Jae-bom asks Oh-song about the note, which he denies leaving behind for Chan-mi, while Hong Ah-young returns to school with big news. The investigators call Soo-hyun for questioning and are unable to get much information from him too. Later, he's asked about his future from his homeroom teacher, who takes him to visit his mother, as he keeps pushing the pain he is feeling deep inside his heart. Later, Chan-mi asks him to accompany her to her brother's adoptive family to pick up the things belonging to her brother. There, they give her a bag that has a lock, which they kept back while everything else has already been taken care of by them. However, their behavior towards Won-sok irks Soo-hyun, who cannot help but lash out for Won-sok and Chan-mi's sake. The two come back, and Chan-mi is able to unlock the bag, where she finds miscellaneous things belonging to her brother. As the two share the bottle of whiskey that they found inside his bag, Soo-hyun gets emotional of what is left of the dead, and rushes to the rooftop. Chan-mi follows him after some time, and sees him crying as she leans in to give him a hug. The next day, Chan-mi finds a way to meet Ah-young with Soo-hyun's help, and finds out that she was never really Won-sok's girlfriend. This leaves Chan-mi stunned, while Ah-young leaves to have lunch with her, So-yeon, and Soo-hyun, who are surprised when she reveals that she's pregnant. Elsewhere, Chan-mi arrives at the cafe her brother once mentioned, and meet Kwon Se-jin, who tells her that he was acquainted with Won-sok. He tells her that Won-sok helped him when he was being bullied for being the child of gay parents, and he was a good person. Chan-mi is surprised because of all this, while she thought that her brother was in the wrong. Later, it is revealed that Se-jin was aware of who she was, as Won-sok had shown her picture to him. The next day, Ah-young and So-yeon go to the gynecologist for the former's appointment, when someone cuts the queue and enters before them. However, this person becomes the reason for the doctor's panic attack, and the patients are all asked to leave. That is when Ah-young remembers that the person is Ju Yok-gun, who had killed that doctor's daughter 2 years back when they were in 8th grade. However, he was not punished as he was a minor, even when he had stabbed the female student 20 times. On the other hand, Jae-bom seems to be trying to get closer to Soo-hyun, as he takes him out for a drive and even asks him for a basketball game the next day. After going out for a drive, So-yeon meets Soo-hyun and asks him to take care of Ju Yok-gun after telling him the crime he had committed. Elsewhere, Jae-bom becomes aware of someone's presence in his room when he finds his keys misplaced and a book he had not seen. Inside the book, he finds a picture of himself with another student. The next day, Oh-song notices the closeness between Jae-bom and Soo-hyun, but doesn't say anything. Later, Jae-bom shows him the pictures and asks who the other person is, when Oh-song reveals that it is Park Won-sok. So-yeon is preparing the path for Soo-hyun to take care of Ju Yok-gun, and passes on the necessary information to him, while asking him to ambush him the same day. Soo-hyun agrees and cancels his plans with Jae-bom and sneaks into the shop where Ju Yok-gun is all alone. There, he ties him up, frightens him, and tells him to apologize to the victim's mother, after which he leaves. The next day, he reports to So-yeon and gets his phone back, while unaware that Ju Yok-gun's case has taken a turn. The police are investigating the murder of Ju Yok-gun while Se-jin meets up with Chan-mi to reveal a secret. He tells her that he knew of her identity and that he was the one who played the video of Won-sok's death. Se-jin also tells her that the person he suspects is Soo-hyun because he saw someone wearing the same shoes as him walking out of the building. Elsewhere, Oh-song burns the photo J-Bomb has shown him and tells him to not let anyone know about this. Later, the news of Chan-mi being Won-sok's sister spreads across the campus and shocks everyone. But this also makes Ji-hyun instigate Chan-mi, who ends up beating her. This angers Ji-hyun's mother, who now wants Chan-mi expelled. After school, Chan-mi meets up with So-yeon and Ah-young, who approach her after the fiasco with Ji-hyun, and also because they now know of her relationship with Won-sok. Ah-young then tells her that Won-sok wasn't a bad person until he came into contact with Oh-song, who seemed to have manipulated him into wronging people. Elsewhere, the investigators have connected the assault case with Ju Yok-gun's murder and go to Young Kyung to find a clue that could help with the case. He tells them that the person seemed like a professional fighter and smelled of alcohol and oil. This brings the investigator Jin So-young to Soo-hyun as she questions him about his martial arts, and about the night when the assault happened. Unfortunately, she gets nothing out of him. On the other hand, J-Bomb finds himself in the horse stables and calls his mother to pick him up. The next day, Oh-song tells Ji-hyun that he will take care of Chan-mi, and asks her to not intrude. However, he tells Chan-mi that he will make sure that she's not expelled, while also claiming to help her find Won-sok's murderer. Elsewhere, So-yeon goes to meet the gynecologist, but runs into So-young, which surprises her. But she later finds out that Ju Yok-gun is dead, which shakes her to the core. Later, while in the middle of investigating, So-young remembers what Young Kyung had told her and connects the perpetrator's smell to the bowling alley where Soo-hyun works. She then rushes to the bowling alley while So-yeon tells Soo-hyun about Ju Yok-gun's death, which shocks him as well. He then sees So-young at the bowling alley, and she asks to check his lockers. However, she finds nothing there. So-young then tries to divert Soo-hyun's attention by having her colleagues search through the place while rushing to the martial arts center below Soo-hyun's place. Soo-hyun realizes what she has done and follows her, but he's too late, as So-young has already broken the lock. However, upon opening the locker, they're both surprised to see that there's nothing inside, and the scene shifts to Chan-mi, who has gone out with a green bag. She then opens her bag to take out Soo-hyun's black bag, which she sends to her orphanage in Busan by mail. Soo-hyun is accusing So-young of not doing her job properly, while wondering who has taken his bag. Elsewhere, J-Bomb reveals to Oh-song that he has recalled bits of his memories, and remembers that he didn't get into an accident, but had tried to commit suicide. He then asks Oh-song if he did that because he was the one who killed Park Won-sok. Some days later, Chan-mi makes her way to Busan while leaving behind a note for Soo-hyun to come to her if he wants his bag. He finds his way to an abandoned building where Chan-mi appears in front of him while aiming her training gun at him. He tries to explain that he wasn't the murderer when the lights flicker and Chan-mi shoots the bullet. This is part 1 of this story. If you want to watch part 2 of this story, please subscribe to my channel for updates about part 2 of this video.